So there's a great quote that says, texting isn't courting. Now, some of you may agree, some of you may disagree. I think we can all agree that texting has become a part of our everyday life and it has definitely become a part of the dating process, whether we like it or not, all right? And it has added an additional layer of something to be mindful of that can have an impact on how we engage with people, our ability to form relationships with somebody, and just overall communication, right? And with that, there are things that I have seen through a lot of women and men, because I'm a coach, been doing this for 15 years. I've seen a lot of different scenarios. I've seen a lot of the mistakes that are being made, all right, and how those things are having a negative impact that you may not be aware of, all right? Now, do not listen to this video and then be like, oh my God, this is too much. Like, I get why it feels that way. But understand, the more you have clarity or wisdom on the good, the bad, or whatever, the better you can have, or the greater chance of having better results in your life, all right? So this is a good thing. This is a chance to grow and learn in a way that's going to be beneficial to you. And please understand, these things I'm going to lay out don't just apply to when you are dating or in a relationship with a man. They really can apply to any and everybody, family, friends, coworkers, you name it. So it's still going to be good for you to hear this out, regardless of how you feel about dating. But let's continue. So there are some common mistakes. And before I get into the mistakes, I have to say this. I think we have to remember that once upon a time, phones did not exist, okay? Once upon a time, the only interaction people could have with each other was face-to-face, in person. I do believe we're getting a little too disconnected from that. We're getting too comfortable with technology, right? And I do think it is clouding people's judgment in a lot of ways. So we got to make sure that we are including a lot of in-person time when we're trying to get to know someone, all right? Especially when we're trying to get to know someone and determine if this is best for us. Now, I'm probably going to bring that point up several times throughout this video, but I had to let that be known right there, all right? Now, with that said, a mistake that a lot of women make, right? And I also have to say, I titled this video as what can make a man lose interest, but it's not really just about a man losing interest. This is also about what can get in your own way. This is also about what just has a negative impact. So just consider that as I'm listing these things for you. So the first mistake I want to mention is being offended by a man who texts way more than he calls. Hear me out. Because I know some of y'all already don't like dealing with that. Like, I have seen so many situations where women have said to me, oh, I met this guy and all he was doing was texting and I cut him off. And I'm like, did you talk to him about that? Oh, no, he's a grown man. He should know better. I get it. I completely understand, right? But unfortunately, we are living in a different time. And unfortunately, you don't know what that man has been exposed to in order for him to understand what is going to be best desired by you, the best form of communication. Because listen, there are some women watching this video and they love texting. That might be you. You may love texting. That may be your preferred method of communication, right? So if that man has dated women who prefer texting, he's not going to know that this new woman, that could be now you as well, doesn't want that or takes issue with that, okay? So we got to get over this whole common sense thing, because common sense ain't always so common. And people are raised differently. People have been through different experiences that shape how they approach things, all right? And for some men, let me say this, some men may be texting more than calling because they don't want to come across too thirsty. They don't want to do too much, right? They don't want to be too overbearing. So it's kind of like texting sometimes for people can be like putting your foot in the water before you dive in the pool. You're just making sure, all right, there's enough interest there. And for some people, it's a matter of it's easier, it's more comfortable. However, on the flip side, I have to mention it, it can be more deceptive in my opinion, all right? It is easier to hide behind text. It is easier not to have to show your true colors or be exposed when we're just texting, which is why I mentioned in the beginning, face-to-face is so important because you can gather so much more that way versus texting, right? But getting back to the point of being offended by it, before you go jumping to cut a man off because all he's doing is texting, talk to him about it. Express your concern or express what your preferred method of communication is, okay? If this man hears you express that to him and continues to overtext, then by all means cut him off. He ain't serious, or he simply is unable or unwilling to communicate in the way that you need, okay? But what you will find in many cases is by simply expressing it, he'll fix it. He'll change it. Oh, now that he knows it's all good, he has the green light to call more often, he will call more often, right? Or maybe now he knows that he has a green light to ask for more opportunities to see you. That can happen. Either way, you will get to see more of who he is by expressing your desire. And I'm always saying, like, one of the best ways to really know how serious a man is not to see what he does on his own. It's to see how he handles your feelings and concerns. That, to me, is the real sign you need to look for, because consider this. No matter how good a man is, no matter how well-intentioned he is, he may not fully understand how you want to be loved, how you want to be poured into, so on and so forth. So even if initially he's getting a lot of things right, there may come a point where he mishandles or does things in a way that doesn't do it for you in the way that you would prefer, right? So at some point, you're going to have to talk to this man. And you talk to any married couple. People can be together for all kinds of years, and there still comes points in that relationship where a partner has to express and explain what they need, or maybe a new desire that has come about, a new preference, right? And if you don't see early on that this man can hear you out, embrace it, and make adjustments, you may be in for a rude awakening later when it's an issue that comes out, and you find out he's the non-compromising guy, or he feels like, well, listen, this is the way you accepted me like this for so long. Why do I need to change now? So we don't wait. We don't kick the can down the road. We don't make assumptions. We talk, we communicate, all right? And then we see if this can move forward or not. All right, so here's another texting mistake that can cause a man to lose interest, or quite frankly can keep you single, is trying to interpret his tone or intent through text, or even his attitude, okay? So one of the great things about face-to-face communication is that you don't get to just use words to try to understand what someone's trying to convey to you. There's body language, there's energy, spirit, right? There's more that you can take in and help to get to a better understanding of things. With text, none of that exists, right? It's just words on your phone. That's it, right? And unfortunately, because we are so used to wanting to sometimes look deeper into things, or we have a natural inclination sometimes to just assume what the intent is, right? It's very easy to take a text or see a text and run with an assumption of, oh, he must be mad at me. Oh, there's an attitude, or oh, this, or oh, that, right? Assuming what's going on, and you're completely way off. Like the whole time, he could have been chilling in his bed, laying calm and cool, texting you a simple message, but what you're envisioning is this angry man texting his phone, just saying, firing back at you, and it's like, that's not what was going on at all, okay? And some of that may be, well, a lot of that is you projecting onto him, because maybe that's how you would have responded, or maybe because you know what your energy is in the moment, right? So let's just say you are texting with anger. It's very natural then to assume his response is coming back with anger too. Unless the only thing that can save that is very specific verbiage that can help, make the assumption of tone easier or more likely to assume it's something nice or calm or whatever the case may be. But it's still dangerous. It's still dangerous. And so we got to be careful with that, which is why certain conversations should not even be via text, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I know the other thing you have to understand or consider when you're texting someone and you're assuming, or forget assuming just energy and attitude. Let's go back to intent. Let's go back to what he's really trying to convey to you. Unfortunately, I'm not going to say this is all women, right? That's ridiculous to say. But a lot of women have a habit, and this can happen text, verbal communication, whatever. Woman's talking to a man, he says something to her. Woman will come back to me or go to her friends or go to her family. What do you think he meant by this? And my thing is, if you need more clarity on what he meant by something he said or he texts, ask him. Ask him. Now, I believe it's going to be easier to do that if you guys were having a discussion, but even then, it happens a lot. For some women, it may be a fear, right? For others, it's just they let their imagination get the best of them. Some are going to projecting onto it due to what they've been through in the past, so it could be unresolved trauma coming up. And you want to be mindful that it's very easy to run with your assumptions and never even realize you did not even verify if this is accurate or not. So what I want to say this, I was literally on the internet earlier today and I saw this clip from some podcast. I don't know where it was from, but it was a podcast. And essentially the woman made a comment like, oh, my boyfriend pretty much said, if I don't do X, Y, Z, I don't love him. And the host was like, did he actually say that to you? And she was like, no, it's just, she's basically saying that's what she interpreted, but he never actually expressed that specific thing. And if you run with your interpretation without verifying, well, that can lead to all kinds of issues. And it can get really messy when it never had to go that way. So, and again, you may have just been completely 100% wrong. So make sure you don't assume, you verify, all right? And if you see that trying to verify, because again, some of you may be very comfortable with text. If you see trying to verify through text is not getting you anywhere, then you got to go to the next level of conversation, which is verbal communication, okay? Whether that be over the phone or in person. But don't just let it linger through text, never really coming to a conclusion or getting verification of what's being said. And then again, we have a huge mess on our hands. All right, so here's another texting mistake that can cause a man to lose interest or, cause problems in general. And that is attempting to have deep conversations through text. All right. From my perspective, text should remain for quick, easy things. It is to supplement our communication with little stuff so that we don't always have to call or maybe somebody's at work. We don't need to disturb them right now, but we need to send them a quick message. All right. Good mornings. How's your day? I'm hungry. Bring me some food. Whatever, right? Quick, easy, simple stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of people go way beyond that. All right. And want to get into these deep conversations through text. Now, let me say this. I think for some men, I won't say all, but for some men, that can be very annoying. All right? Because now if we're getting into deep conversations, we're going to have these long paragraphs and this long thread. And here's the reality of a few realities to try to attempt to have these deep conversations via text. One, it's not the most effective form of communication for that type of discussion, because I believe there is this natural inclination to condense our message when we're texting via if we were talking or even writing an email. All right. Some of you may say, well, email, text is still words on a computer or whatever. No, I believe there's a very different mindset, because the email, you don't feel as restricted. So it's easier to really get everything out, to go deeper into what you have to say. But text, there's this inclination to where, okay, I don't want to maybe make the text too long, so many characters, whatever the case may be. So we start to try to shorten and condense it, and that can cause us to leave out things that would help us better convey what we're trying to say, okay? And so we may end up overlooking some important things that need to be mentioned. I also think that for the person who's receiving it, again, now we're leaving it up to them to assume what the intent was, what your energy was behind it, your tone, things of that nature. That can also make it more difficult, because again, you're probably not going to use as many words to express yourself. Some people may be masters at texting everything they need to say, right? But I think for a lot of people, it doesn't go that way. So we got to make sure that, I know sometimes we're antsy, we got a lot we want to say, and again, it's very easy and convenient to just go and text it. But you got to ask yourself, is this really the best approach to take right now? Especially when it's discussing this issue specifically, whatever that might be that you're going through, okay? Again, also, I think going back to what I mentioned earlier, you are now not giving yourself the opportunity to have the additional modes of communication, which include body language, energy, spirit, so on and so forth. So I think that you've got to try to, I would rather see people, when they need to have a deeper discussion, say, hey, through the text, you can be like, hey, can we sit down and talk later? Hey, can we meet later? Now, I know some people, you feel like if you do that, they're not going to give you an opportunity to talk. They may dance around it. My thing is this, if they're not willing to sit down and have a conversation with you and allow you to express yourself, then is this really the person you should be trying to have a relationship with? Because then what happens later on? What are you going to do? If you marry them, you're going to be texting your husband all the time when you got to discuss things? No. Y'all going to have to learn how to sit down and talk. Or, again, I'm a big believer in letters. I think letters, whether they're written or through email, can be very effective. I honestly think, I believe, I'll even say I know, they tend to be more effective than verbal communication, all right? Because even though this is about text, let me just say this. When we express deep issues and concerns verbally, it's very easy to get distracted. It's very easy for people to get more defensive, to deflect, to listen to rebuttal versus listening to understand. Whereas letter, email, people are more inclined to sit, process. They don't have to react in the moment, which I believe leads to more effective communication. All right. So bottom line is, leave the deep conversations for different modes of communication, and keep text for things that are short, sweet, and simple as much as possible. All right, so we got a few more to go, but before I continue, be sure to get your copy of How to Get a Man to Cherish You. Don't let the title throw you off. don't let it trigger you any kind of way. Trust me, you're going to love this book, all right? And you're going to appreciate it. You just got to actually read it. So go to becherishedbyhim.com or click the link in the description or in the comment section. And again, you're going to love it, all right? Now, moving on. Another mistake that a lot of women make that can cause a man to lose interest when it comes to texting is taking a long time to respond. Now, let me say this. This is something, I put this on the list because I feel that this is something that in today's world, I think we need to have discussions about expectations and communication as early as possible. All right. If we're sensitive to those things, because not everybody is sensitive to it. I'll be honest with you. If you take a while to respond to me, I'm cool with that. Like, I have no problem, because if I'm being honest, that makes me feel like, all right, if I have a moment where I get busy, I may take a little long to respond, we'll be fine. So I'm not going to stress you about it. You're not stressing me. I'm good. And in general, I'm not really bothered by those things, I guess because I'm always doing stuff anyway. So it's less of a concern for me. However, there are people who are very sensitive to that. All right. Some of you may be like, oh, hell no. If you don't respond to me within an hour of texting, no, we're done. And if that's how you feel, so be it. Right. This is not a right or wrong thing. This is more so have that discussion early, because everyone doesn't have the same expectation with that. Right. And everyone may not understand how important it is to you and the impact it can have, because unfortunately, there are people who will make assumptions when people take a long time to respond. And this is hitting my spirit, so I feel the need to say this real quick. All right. And I'm going to use myself. So one of the things I see that's very common is people get upset when, like, you text somebody, they haven't responded to you, then you jump on, let's say, Instagram, and you see they just watched your story or something, or you see them posting on there. And you're like, so wait a minute, you can be on social media, but you ain't respond to me, which I understand the issue or the concern there. However, I'm not going to say defend it. Let me explain it, at least from my perspective. There are times where I may be physically available, but I am not mentally available. I am mentally exhausted. And I think a lot of you can relate to that, right? And sometimes a text requires a response that requires me to have to put thought into it, right? Or I have to be mindful of how I respond right now. And if I'm not at a place where I want to even process that, I'm not responding to the text yet. Not because I'm ignoring the person, not because you're not important or whatever. It's just mentally, I'm not able to even have any kind of conversation or respond. And let me say this, because some of you may say, well, what do you mean conversation? It's just a text. Listen, let's be real. Some people, we know sometimes when the person texts us that if we respond back right, it's going to lead to more text. Okay? So it's like, nah, you're not just responding right now in the moment for just that one text. It can lead to having to respond to a lot more. And again, if you are not mentally available, so be mindful that, and when you say, well, then why, if you're mentally exhausted, are you on social media? Because posting on social media sometimes doesn't require much thought, doesn't require you having to make sure you handle this correctly, doesn't lead to more. It's just literally, okay, boom, done, right? Now, some people may hear that and think that's ridiculous. That's a horrible excuse. And I'm not trying to give an excuse. I am trying to explain. And it's really not about the social media part. It's simply about sometimes people are just not mentally available to respond. I know, again, I'm going to speak for me, and I know there's a lot of people who feel me on that, who understand. And so, again, I think this is why it's important to discuss these things in advance, to understand the type of person you're dealing with so that we don't take anything the wrong way and allow it to become an issue or a huge disconnect in the relationship because we don't have an understanding of the expectations and how we both handle these types of things. All right, so let's keep this thing going. And another texting mistake that women make that can cause a man to lose interest or just cause problems. Let's just say provocative pictures. Now, don't assume yet. Let me break this down. You know, I didn't say sending. I didn't say receiving. I just said provocative pictures because I wanted to cover a few angles here, okay? The first angle I want to discuss is this. there's a lot of women who take offense to when a man asks them to send a picture, okay? And I completely understand that, right? But whenever a woman says to me, oh, I'm not talking to him anymore, he was asking me to send him a picture. My question is always, was he asking for a regular picture or a provocative picture? Okay? Because here's the difference. Depending on how y'all met or how long you guys have been talking, if you guys have met up in person yet, there are some scenarios that I can understand why the man asks for a regular picture. Okay? So to give an example, let's say you guys met online, whether it be Instagram or a dating app, you exchange numbers, you guys are talking. The reality is that a lot of people don't want to be catfished, right? A lot of people have had that experience before. And sometimes asking for a picture is kind of like, the more I can see different pictures to verify, okay, this person consistently looks like this or whatever, or looks is what I find attractive, okay, I can feel safer about it. Because sometimes people post misleading pictures, plain and simple. I also think that for some men, because there are a lot of women out there who wear a lot of makeup, and we're not going to get into the whole makeup discussion right now, but the point is a lot of women do, and sometimes women do it in a way that presents them in a different way than what they look like if the makeup was off, or at least lighter, right? So some men, again, with that concern in mind, may ask for a picture. I think that's valid. I think it's understandable at the very least. That's very different from he's asking for a provocative picture. Okay? Now we can say chances are he's just focused on sex, and his head's in the wrong place. Is he really serious about trying to build a relationship here? All of that becomes valid concerns, questions, or even likely scenarios. So that's why I think it's important that we understand what is he exactly asking for. Okay? Now, I will also say this. For some of you, let's just keep it real. Some of you may not mind sending pictures. Some of you may like sending provocative pictures. I ain't here to judge. Right now, as you guys are adults, you can do what you want. I'm not even going to get into the right or wrongs or whatever. If that's your thing right now, that's your thing. But just understand what stage you are setting. All right? Because if you are sending provocative pictures, and more specifically, early on in the dating process, you are sending the signal in a lot of cases that you just down to have some fun. That's how a lot of men, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of men will take it that way. Okay, she's, as some will say, she's about that life. All right? And if that's what you're really on, that's a different discussion. However, if you are hoping for a relationship, something serious, all these things, well, there's a very good chance you're going to make it harder for yourself. Now, that's very different than two people who have something already established. They're deeper in the dating process. Maybe they've already conveyed serious interest, their plans, or they become exclusive. We'll get into the whole exclusive thing in a different video, but let's just say y'all official. Then that's a whole different ballgame, right? But early on, you got to be mindful of that, okay? Now, I'm going to say one more thing about these provocative pictures. I don't want to mention, I'll just say this. There are some men who send pictures of their package, okay? And again, for some of y'all, you may like that. If that's again your thing, whatever. Once again, I will say this. If he does that, and you have to be mindful of how you handle that situation if you're going to continue seeing that man, and so that he understands where you really stand, so that things are not misinterpreted. All right? So you just want to be mindful and careful of how we handle the picture sending, and more specifically the provocative pictures when it comes to text. A couple more to go. Stay with me here. You need to hear this for sure. Another big texting mistake that can cause a man to lose interest, or let's flip it for a second, cause you to lose interest, but it might be it is a mistake for you to do it this way, is evaluating his communication skills through text. And I'm going to even add to that, through messaging of any form. What do I mean? For a lot of women who, again, in today's world, we're very digital. A lot of women will meet a guy, whether it be online, through social media, or even through a dating app, okay? And I've had a lot of women come to me saying, oh, it's so hard to be trying to date these guys on a dating app or social media because they don't know how to hold a conversation. And I have to explain to them, do not use that method of communication as a way to determine if a man can hold a conversation or not, because that doesn't really show you if he can. And I'm going to use me for example again. I'm someone that if we are face to face, I can have a conversation with you easy, right? I know how to discuss things and keep your interest, all that kind of stuff. But through online, social media, whatever, I'm horrible. I am downright horrible. Like, I'm not really into the chit chat and the small talk and all this other stuff. Like, I don't got time for that. So for me, if you try to evaluate my communication skills through a messaging app or texting or whatever, you're going to have the wrong impression. 100%, you are going to get the wrong impression. And again, it's important that we don't fall into that trap, because we have to remember this. If you end up with this person, right? And this is both in falling to the trap of assuming he can't hold conversation, or even for some people, they may have a much easier time communicating through these messaging apps through text, but in person, they're like socially awkward or don't know how to speak to you, like they can't handle it. And the problem is this: if you graduate to being in a relationship with this man, the majority of your communication will be in person. So we have to evaluate it from there. We got to remember, online, and more specifically, when we meet someone through a dating app or through social media, it's just small talk. If you've identified that there's any kind of interest based off of physical attraction, based off of, the resume they've presented, then take that into an in-person meeting and actually see if there's something there. Now, for some of you, it's no, we need to do the phone first. Fine, that's cool, but I still believe the phone doesn't always give you the full picture. I've seen plenty of people feel like, oh my gosh, this guy is amazing. We've had all these long conversations. That's beautiful. And then when they meet in person, it's flat. The energy's not there. It's not working. And again, that's the most important part. So please do not come to conclusions about his communication skills using text or any kind of messaging app. All right, so I had to put this on this list, all right, because I think it's an important thing to discuss for a second. And so another texting mistake a lot of women make that can cause a man to lose interest is never expressing desire. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of women who love them a good morning text, right? Who love to receive text from their man that shows that they're thinking about them, that conveys any kind of love, interest, positivity, you name it, okay? And that's beautiful, nothing wrong with that. And that's what you like, that's what you like. Some people may not care for it, whatever. But then on the flip side, there's a lot of women, maybe you, may not be you, who forget that you might be dealing with a man who likes the same. He may love to get a good morning text from you, right? And it's not to say it's all on you before any of y'all jump to that conclusion. I'm just saying he would like that same energy from you. He would like expressions of it, desire from you. He would like you showing that you're thinking about him too, right? Because you have to understand this. for a lot of men out there, their fear and concern is, does this woman really like me? All right. Is she really into me? Or is she just bored right now? If the man is successful or has status, he might be like, well, maybe she's only into me because she wants those things. She doesn't really like she's not into the man that I am. A lot of men have been through that. And part of what makes it harder for that man to feel more at peace with those concerns is that woman's willingness to express desire. Which is why, even in situations, a lot of times when you see women who are able to play a man, right? And I'm not advising this from the standpoint of I want you to be playing anybody. However, women who play the game, they know how to make that man feel good. They know how to stroke that ego. They know how to show some interest here and there to work their angles and get what they want out of the situation. I'm not conveying that for the sake of playing games. I'm conveying that for the sake of you understanding it's effective. All right. And these men want to feel wanted and desired by a woman that they have interest in as well. So don't forget to use the text in that way. And again, I think that is one of the great ways to use text. Quick, short messages, showing desire, cute little things, stuff like that. That to me is where it can be a nice little addition to a relationship. But do not forget the need for face-to-face interaction, because that's going to be the key to building a successful and happy relationship. Thank you for watching this video. I pray it was helpful to you. Be sure to watch this one over here on 5 beautiful ways to make a man feel desired. I already hear some of you saying, well, they don't compliment us or they're not doing their job when it comes to that. One, this video is about what y'all can do, right? And let me just make something clear.